welcome to your spiritual Reddit stories. I'm your podcast host, Olivia Jade, pagan priestess, psychic medium, healer, and facilitator. And guess what's different, you guys? That's right, I got a new microphone! I am so happy. It's literally taking all of my willpower to not actually scream in your ears right now. I just love it so much. So I really hope that the sound quality is better for you guys, and I especially hope that the neighbors deciding to mow their lawn right at this moment cannot be heard by you guys. So, oh my goodness. Well, I will be reading cryptid stories from the r/CryptidEncounters subreddit for you today. For those of you who don't know, cryptids are supernatural, usually hybrid animalistic creatures from both folk tales and documented sightings around the world. Some famous examples include Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch, the Loch Ness Monster, and Thunderbirds. I actually saw a ton of cryptids appear in old Italian art in the museums I went to, studying abroad there, which really surprised me. I'm talking paintings, crests, and even wallpaper in an old building. I'm not kidding. That's commitment to have some weird creature thing across your entire wall repeated 1,000 times. I'm sorry, what? That just sounds very significant and interesting to me. So I also have an entire video on my YouTube channel where I talk about cryptids as part of my Across the Veil of Field Guide series. So I'll be sure to link that for you in the show notes if you're interested, which I do highly recommend. I have my own encounter stories in there. Today I'm going to kind of focus on other people's stories as well as a story from my own friend in my personal life. So stay for that at the end, okay? It's pretty wild. So these aren't just some distant tales from random people on the internet. No, I know people in my life who I've seen face to face. I know them. They're honest people, and they're like, I saw this thing. That's a lot. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into these stories. This first one is actually a repost from the Australian Cryptids subreddit, posted 5 months ago, and it's titled, What's Following Me? I downloaded Reddit specifically to ask for help with this because I'm freaked out. That already is oh my gosh. But they go on to say, to preface this, I have always had an interest in cryptids and spirits and such. Never been scared because I have a firm belief, with spirits at least, that if I don't allow something to have power to scare me, it can't, meaning I'm safe. So, quick comment about this. Yes, that is technically true. If you remember your own inherent power, your own nature of your soul, which is eternal. We are all one with Source. And so these beings that try to scare us, to feed off of our energy, this is something I talk about in depth in my series on YouTube. We are vibrationally, quote unquote, above them when we remember who we are and we remember the true nature of our souls. So they cannot touch us in that case. If we can solidify ourselves in that belief and in that knowingness that we are protected because we are Source. So anyway, they go on to say that not only that, but I have frequent experiences with spirits and the supernatural in that respect, but not like this. To start off, I live in an extremely rural town, as in 150 people, one fruit shop, quote unquote, and one corner shop. Don't even have a primary school. Most people in my town are over the age of 60 and don't leave the house, which might be irrelevant, but it kind of sets the scene. Back when I was 14, I had a friend that lived about 1.5 kilometers away from me. However, I lived in a more central part of town, and he, Dustin, wasn't allowed to walk home alone since he lived down a very private and bush-enclosed path. We were out with a mutual friend, Stacy, who happened to be Aboriginal, which, for those of you who don't know, that is the indigenous peoples of Australia. It was 6 p.m. in the summertime, and if you know Australia in the summertime, it means that the sun is only just setting, so it was bright out. Walking Dustin home had legit no issues. However, 5 minutes into the walk back, it just felt wrong. The only thing I can equate the feeling to is an unimaginable guilt. Like when you were a kid and took an extra lolly, then got caught. like your stomach sinking and your chest tightening and stuff, but I don't know. I just kept walking. Then I started feeling watched. Now, my area is known for wild dogs, and the local council baits them about 3 times a year for 2 to 3 months at a time. So I assume it's a dog, and dogs don't come out the bush unless you're alone, which I wasn't. The path you had to walk to get back to the center of the town was surrounded by thick lantana. Is next to the road, but it's a very, very quiet road, and the trees oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Very, very quiet road, and the trees behind the lantana you can't even see through. Basically, me and Stacy have about a 20-minute walk left when I start hearing the gravel of the path crunching behind us. I go to turn my head around, but Stacy squeezes my hand and sort of nods forward. So I keep looking forward because I got the sense she almost had an idea of what was happening. Then whatever was following us upped the ante and started tugging on my hair, parenthesis, I've always worn it down and my hair was usually at my shoulders, end parenthesis. That was when Stacy looked at me and just tugged me forward running. Then a scream came from behind us in the bush and from the road. Stacy told me to keep running home and not look back, generally assuming she knows more about the land than me. I follow her directions. So just really quick here, a little comment. I've seen this a lot, actually, not just with creatures and folkloric sort of tales of creepy things happening in areas. Certain ghosts, the stories that are passed down from people in communities say, do not look this thing in the eye. If you hear a noise, don't turn around. If you da-da-da-da, like, you can't acknowledge it. You can't look in the direction of it. You can't, like, be attentive towards it, basically, because that almost gives them an in to your energy. It almost creates a connection. You know what? A great way I can describe it energetically for me, the way I'm feeling into it is, it's like back in the day when you would call the operator and they had to literally on their end plug in the cords. You know, you would say, oh, I want to talk to so-and-so, and then on their end, on their little board thingy, they would take these different sticks and plug them in so that you two could be connected. So in my opinion, as a psychic medium, as a practitioner of spiritual stuff who's had experiences, it's that process of the plugging in is you turning around and looking at it. So if you don't turn around and look at it, the operator is not going to connect you, and you're not going to be communicating or connected to that thing, if that makes sense. That's kind of a funny way to put it, I guess. It's a funny picture, but I don't know. That's just the way that I want to describe it with how the energy feels. So they go on by saying, we made it home in 10 to 15 minutes, and I jumped my fence to not waste time. My mother and brother, who was 12 at the time, were grocery shopping in the next town over, meaning me and Stacy were home alone. Stacy told me to shut all the doors in the house where something could look inside, so I did, and the only rooms we could enter was the office, the lounge, and the kitchen, the hall, and the toilet. The second to last door / curtain closed, and we sat our asses on the couch. There was manic banging from all over the house. Stacy again told me to ignore it. What did I say? So they go on by saying the banging went on for about 35 minutes before it all stopped, and I heard my mom asking me to open the door, something along the lines of, quote, blank, can you open the door? I have the groceries to put inside, end quote. The issue with that was my mom was the type of lady to say, quote, get this door open right now. Why is it locked? You're being ridiculous, end quote, but with much more swearing. So I ignore it, and so does Stacy, quote, who was staying the night, I forgot to mention. Then the banging starts again and intensifies. After like 5 minutes, the banging stops again. I hear the gate open, my mom's car park, and the angry voice at the door. Her angry voice at the door specifically. That's not fully the scary bit anymore. Now the scary bit is that every couple weeks or so, I hear the banging directly above mine and my brother's rooms. I've talked to my parents about it. I'm 17 now and going to move out soon. And my parents can't hear it, but my brother is also certain that he can hear it despite not being there during the incident. I don't talk to Stacy very much anymore, but the last time I brought it up, she denies being there and experiencing it. But Dustin, who I still talk to, can confirm that Stacy, not me, told him the weekend after it happened. My parents do not lock the doors at night or shut the wooden doors. I'm guessing they're talking about window shutters. Sometimes the screen for the dogs. I'm quite scared that whatever is keeping track of me will figure that out. But more important, I want to have at least an idea of what it could be and what to do, because recently I've been waking up with cat-like scratches. I don't have a cat, and bruises on my legs and hips. So the story's almost over here, but I'm gonna kind of insert a comment here. So scratches and bruises like that definitely shouldn't be ignored. I don't think that so it's weird and it could sound counterintuitive, but with the scratches and the bruising, it is an energetic sort of pressure that creates those. And I know it's like, oh, well, no, you need to, what if the thing is sneaking in and hurting them at night and they just don't know? I mean, I guess that's a possibility, but in my experience, I mean, I've had experiences with demonic energies, and I've woken up with marks on my body after having nightmares and stuff like that. Even though they are not physically able to get to me, it's in certain states, like astrally or whatever, or just through the energy that they can affect you in whatever way that they can, you know what I mean? And so it's like, this to me is I mean, they said that they're moving out soon. I would be concerned about the brother. I would almost want to ask him, like, hey, do you also get these scratches and bruises? To make sure that you can have some type of cleansing or clearing or protective incantation in place for him who is going to be staying at the property being affected. And then the person moving out, OP, I'm wondering if the bruising and the scratches will stop when they leave. And if they don't, then there's some type of energetic attachment that can be targeted in a session with a healer like myself. You want to sever that. You want to definitely not ignore that. Pay attention to it, especially if it's prolonged. Sometimes you can have a scary experience with some type of low-grade siphon just passing through in a nightmare or something, and they try to get some energy off of you. They freak you out, and then you might wake up with like a weird mark on your arm or something. Not necessarily a sheet mark or a scratch, but like, but if it's prolonged like that, that's definitely something that should be taken into consideration to guide your next steps. The last paragraph here, they say, one thing I remember is Stacy telling me before she denied it happening is that if I ever look out the window while it's banging, which I don't and won't, she said to look at its eyes. If they were white, it was a wandering entity. Red, it wanted a reaction. Black wanted to cause harm and was insistent that wasn't about spirits but physical creatures. I'm currently with my aunt and uncle in the closest city to my area because this is the time of year it happened when there is the most activity. And if it started scratching me and getting inside, I don't want to be home. Can anyone help or have any ideas on what it is and what to do? No real names, by the way, because I want to keep things private for the people there. So definitely good on them to leave. Again, I feel bad for their brother. Okay. Can brother also stay with Aunt and Unky? Like, so let's see here. There are some comments, but I want to just kind of finish up my own comments here for this. This is very interesting. So Stacy did say if you do see it, look at its eyes to determine what kind of entity it is. That's very interesting. So I mean, I guess in that case, because, I said earlier, and she, even during this interaction of them running away from it, like, don't turn around, like, don't acknowledge it in any way. I think the looking out the window bit is like an accidental, like, if you do, and maybe, actually, now that I think about it, if it's not a direct look, you're looking at it through a piece of glass, technically. So I'm almost wondering, because, like, in different stories throughout history and stuff. I mean, I know this is folklore, but Medusa looking at her in the reflection of a mirror, So as long as you're not looking at something directly, like if there's some type of barrier or like a reflection, then that usually protects you. So I'm almost wondering if you're looking out your window on a random day and it just happens to be right freaking there. Oh my God, I can't even imagine. I'm getting freaked out just thinking about it. That's just not fun, that's not something you want to deal with. So I'm almost wondering if she is like, so okay, if you do look out your window on some random day and it is there and you do see it, then you can get more information about what to do and like what kind of entity it is by looking at the eyes, and this is what the different eye colors mean. Not for spirits, for entities specifically. So this actually is so interesting with these different colored eyes, because I heard of Mothman. Mothman has glowing red eyes. So in this comment from OP's friend Stacy, she says, red, it wants a reaction. Wanting some type of attention. Again, I talk about this in depth in my series on YouTube, but basically, whether they're scaring you, they're engaging with you in some way, they're getting your attention, like any type of reaction they can get from you with whatever type of emotion, but especially the negative emotions, it is a way for them to feed off of your energy. They just want that. It's like, how can I, when you look at a body of water and it's really hot out and sometimes you can see the water, like the surface water, evaporate into the air? That evaporation, like that mist that is like rising up, imagine that being the negative emotion that is coming off of your field and off of your body. That entity in front of you will absorb that. And so that's like the best way I can describe it. That's all they want in that case, is to be able to just get that like sustenance from that thing that's being like radiated off of you. They incite that fear. They incite that thing, that action, to get your reaction, and then they essentially reap their rewards from that. As far as what it could be, I would look into the folklore of the area specifically, especially if there's a large indigenous population there. There could be some insights from the resources of that community, maybe stories or people or books that they have, like any type of like locally owned small business bookshop or archives at your local library. Like, I would start there personally. And I know that some people say some stuff. So they were questioning the dogs. This one comment was, and they were like, oh no, it's wild dogs. I messed up, there was like a typo in the original version. I guess they edited it. And then someone else said, they were like, oh, okay, yeah, so it's saying there is an Aboriginal cryptid known as, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, the Jonjudi, or a few regional names. It's like a small yowie. Yowie? Yowie. Thing is, they're said to be tricksters who like to do shite like yanking on hair and effing with people. As far as whether that's what you experienced, I can't say, but it's what came to mind instantly to me. They say a couple other things. I'm just scanning to see what's actually relevant. Many Native American / Aboriginal Australian myths, depending on who you ask, say that speaking about a thing gives it power and pulls it to you. I think you listening for it every night and talking to everyone about it may not help you. Have you spoken to Stacy about this again to ask her advice? If you don't mind me asking, without doxing yourself, obviously, could you tell us a rough area this happened, even just whose Aboriginal land it once was? I'd be interested to look into similar stories from the area. Yeah, so what did I say? OP said, in the Sunshine Coast hinterland, really out far from any town. As for the ignoring thing, I do my best, and until now hadn't spoken about it other than to Stacy. Oh, okay, so who only started denying it happened about a year ago. As for the Junjudi, I know another family from a mob native to the area. Stacy's mob is from, I don't know if mob is a abbreviation for something. It's from WA. The people I know call them hairy men. Don't remember the cultural name, and they're supposed to be lucky if you see them. So I don't think it's that, because this seems very malevolent, even more than the typical trickster way, which, before I read the rest of their comment, I agree. I don't think that, a trickster will mildly inconvenience you, but they're not going to be like stalking you and causing marks on your body and banging. And oh my gosh, I forgot to react to this while reading the story. The frickin' mimicking, nah, this isn't the first time I've heard of an entity of some kind mimicking somebody so that you trust them. Like, ew, I hate that. Whether it's through vocals, mimicking a voice, or even mimicking the looks of somebody, but not all the way. Like, I remember there was this story shared on And That's Why We Drink. I love that podcast. It was a listener story, I'm pretty sure, and they were saying how there was this entity who looked just like their mom from the back, hanging out watching a static TV at night in the frickin' living room, and then it turned around and it had the face of an owl or something like that. So I was like, like, you would have thought you could have just like walked right past, especially if it was just chilling or not watching static TV, or like if it was regular TV. Be like, oh yeah, mom's watching TV, it's fine. Nope, that's not your mom. I hate that. That's so gross. So anyway, I just wanted to say that that's yucky, gross. If it's mimicking, that's not good. So that you feel they fool you into letting them into your house, or like literally imagine opening your door to that thing, and you opening the door was it like allows it to come in. Anyway, OP says in this comment, I am very, very familiar with the spirit demon side off the spiritual, the supernatural, probably just meant of the supernatural, and can sort of recognize when things aren't right in a dangerous way, and this thing feels very wrong. It reminds me of my grandparents' house. I don't know if this is fully relevant because my grandparents are in the Darling Downs area, but the land they've had for generations runs over an old burial site sort of thing. Don't know if it was Aboriginal or settlers' cemetery, but the room that was built above the area gives me the same gut feeling, and I'm not sure as to why my brother can hear the banging, but my parents can't. Yeah, see, that's strange. I mean, OP is... Did they say they're turning 17 or they are 17? They're 17 now. Okay, so I'm almost wondering if their brother is... I don't think they specify. I'm trying to scan here really quick for you guys. I don't think they specify whether or not their brother is younger than them, but I can only assume if, the brother's there, but then OP is 17 and moving out soon type of thing. If they are essentially like children who experienced this, it almost, like, I'm sorry to bring a fictional movie into a real scary situation, but it just reminds me of that scene at the end of Polar Express where the kid and his sister, I forgot his name, I'm sorry, but they're ringing the bell and they can hear it. It's Santa's sleigh bell. And the parents lift it up to their ears and they're ringing it and they're like, oh, it's broken. I'm so sorry. That sucks. But the brother and sister like go off to the side and they're just like in their own little cute world, like listening to this beautiful ringing that their parents can't hear. So not only that, a very real thing that people talk about in spiritual communities is that if you don't nurture supernatural experiences, if you kind of, snuff it out of kids and say, oh, that's not real, like you're just imagining things, you're lying, like that didn't happen, and like they grow up to be adults that are numbed out by the limitations that society put on them, basically. As far as belief in spiritual experiences go, it's like a damper on the otherwise untainted child blank slate kind of mind. That could be another thing too, of like their parents were just, they were raised in a society that is not accepting of anything that isn't provable and isn't science, right? And the kids are closer to that original blueprint that they were born into, that childlike wonder, that openness before being bogged down by all these projections and just, this is the way things are kind of beliefs. Okay, I talked a long time about all that, I did not realize, but this was a really long story and there was a lot to say in it, and those are all the comments, those are all my comments. This was posted relatively recently. I do hope that OP is okay. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one. So this is from CryptidEncounters, and it is actually a question. And the story I'm going to read you is a comment under this question post. So it's from 5 months ago, and they say, "What personal encounter made you believe in cryptids? How did it change your perception of reality?" And somebody 4 months ago replied saying, "I saw some weird thing in the woods at the end of the street I live on. It's not too crazy, but it still freaks me out when I'm out by those woods. For a little context, I live in a small neighborhood on like half an acre of land. I live on a dead end with 5 other houses. There are 3 on the left and 3 on the right. I live in the middle of 2 houses. At the end of the street, there's some woods. Across my neighbor's yard is in the woods. I see this white figure. As soon as I close the door, it looks up, stands up, and looks at me. It was about 7 to 8 feet tall and had a featureless face. It looked like a tall man, but he had smooth white skin and no features whatsoever. It ran off into the woods and didn't trip over anything. It was fast and never went down to all fours, but instead ran on 2 feet. I haven't ever seen it since, but I have heard what sounds like footsteps out there. I know it's not a deer because deer live out there, and I know what they sound like when they walk. I don't know what it was, but it was freaky." So this is going to kind of come up later in the episode with other stories, and actually this very next story I'm going to read for you guys after I fully react to this current one. That is, or maybe I'll actually tie it into these two, because most of my commentary is going to just be aimed towards what I call copycats. So copycats are, in my opinion, they are very cryptid-like creatures, but they actually resemble pop culture things. And I don't know. Honestly, I would be so interested down in the comment section if you guys think that it's like a chicken or the egg, like what came first, the chicken or the egg type of argument. Because it's like, okay, well, if these things are real, quote unquote, that are from a certain anime or from like a creepypasta, like this story we just read sounds like Slender Man. And that is a video game, and that is like a man-made thing, but here OP saw it in front of them in real life. So it's like, okay, like you could argue, was the creator of the original Slender Man game inspired by like maybe a nightmare that they had and they thought it was fake, they thought it was like their subconscious, but it was actually this entity connecting with them? Or maybe they saw it in the forest and they were like, oh yeah, because like literally, doesn't Slender Man take place in the forest? It's like a forest, and then there's like this random building in the middle, and you're like going through the building, and like Slender Man is around like the corner, and like you have to run away from him. Like it's like a whole thing. I am so curious to see, like, okay, well, were these developers of these things actually inspired by real things without really knowing it? Or did these entities almost have like shape-shifting abilities to where it's like a survival mechanism, almost like an evolution point where they are trying to, like I said, get a reaction out of people. There is something that is already freaky to them, already scary to them. They morph into that thing in front of this person and it freaks them out. They siphon that energy. So it's like, that is actually a very interesting discussion. I would be so curious to see what you guys think down in the comment section if you want to share your perspective. But this next story is a repost from the Creepcast submissions. But these comments are very, very interesting, and they kind of draw some comparisons between sightings and different folkloric, sort of pagan things. This is from 6 months ago, and it's titled, "Did anyone else ever grow up hearing about the Jingle Man at Christmas time?" And it is with the creepypasta tag. So, and what did I say? Copycats. So let's get into it. They say, in gathering stories and creepypastas about a little known Christmas urban legend cryptid called the Jingle Man, I was wondering if anyone else on here had ever heard of it. At first, I thought it was only a Krampus ripoff or something, but the few stories I can find all center more on victims who turn to unaliving themselves to either escape or join the entity in their passing. I think it's largely an older pre-Christian explanation for things like seasonal depression during the winter time, but the information online is few and far between. The most consistent bit of folklore seems to be a short poem or a Christmas song about the entity, which is, "I hear his bells, in darkness dwells, hide quiet in your beds, the jingle man will come again and leave you when you're past." Has anyone else ever heard about the jingle man? Again, there is this kind of folkloric cryptid tale thing. What do they call it? An urban legend? Yeah, an urban legend. Maybe it's based off of this, maybe it's based off of that, Krampus, pagan things. But these comments are very, very interesting, so I'm going to go ahead and read them to you. So most of these are making comparisons. So let's see. The first comment says, "I never heard of it, but it's a cool story. It does remind you of Krampus." But then someone else said, OP actually found this. A screen grab from some website. It says, "Carries children away." Another example may be the vaguely named Ger Galakenman, or the Bellman, believed to be the earliest known reference for a pre-Christian winter boogeyman that is now associated with the popular, quote, "Jingle Man" creepypasta online. This is the best I could find so far. And then someone else said it's really interesting. I always liked scary holiday lore, but I haven't heard of this yet. But then somebody said, or, oh my gosh, it was OP. Okay, so OP is kind of like trying to gather their own evidence, putting it in the comments, engaging with the other commenters. And this is what really drives it home for me personally. They say, "One of our sources said he grew up hearing this little ghost story from his father, but that he never really thought much about it. Then decades later, he came across a creepypasta online about the exact same Christmas boogeyman. According to our source, he emailed the writer but never got a response back. The part that made our source anxious and what ultimately led to him wanting to contact us is that the creepypasta in question had the exact word-for-word song about the Jingle Man that he had grown up hearing from his own father." Boom. I'm sorry, guys. What? What? So maybe in some of these cases, these people, these creators are inspired by real entities. Like, what? Like, come on. What? And I feel so bad for that person, that source that OP is referring to. The fact that they reached out to the creator of the creepypasta and they never got a response back, that's kind of eerie. Like, ooh, they're on to us. Ooh, they're on to me. Not gonna reply. That's weird, guys. I don't know. Like, it's right there. I believe it. That is so crazy. So yes, this is a very interesting kind of concept, and I talk way more about it in my video, so please go ahead and check it out on YouTube. It's linked in the show notes. But just to list off some that I've seen, I literally have seen, if you've seen the original Fruits Basket anime, I was literally getting in the shower one time back in college, and I saw a version of Kyo's true cat form, the kind of creepy looking one, but it was bipedal and it was more orange colored. And I was like, huh, I'm so glad that I'm clairsentient and I can't actually see this with my physical eyes in front of me right now because so there's that. And I'm not kidding. I did one time see a Ryuk looking thing from the anime Death Note passing through my kitchen one time, like a year apart from, or maybe it was only a couple months after the Kyo cat form thing. Bruh, like what? And it was totally mute. Like Ryuk in the anime, obviously a huge part of his character is his personality, and like that thing that I saw in the kitchen, nothing. There was nothing behind its eyes, but it looked at me and it kept kind of walking. I was like, okay. Like, day in the life. So this is so interesting. That's just so weird to me because if anything, I guess it is a specific class, a specific category of cryptids, just not in the same way as, I guess, traditional cryptids. Yeah, I have no idea. I wonder if they really do have shape-shifting capabilities, or if these authors and creators were inspired by these real entities that they saw in a dream or some weird experience that they wrote off or something. I have no idea. I would love to learn more. That's really cool. So, okay, this is from Cryptid Encounters, like originally posted here. Let's see, 6 months ago. Sorry. I was like, okay. And it's called What Did My Friend and I See? It has been a couple years now, but my friend Jack and I used to really enjoy camping and hiking in the state forest, upstate New York. Behind the home he grew up in, it was a massive forest with a large pond in the middle. I don't know exactly how large, but you could walk for miles in any direction and not get anywhere. A large part of the forest was flat, but the further in you went, the more elevated it became until you were hiking some pretty steep elevation. We were there midsummer. One day we planned on spending the whole day out in the forest. We packed bags with lunches and snacks, equipment to start a campfire, which, parentheses, we very rarely did, but always brought it just in case, end parentheses, and we each had knives. We walked a couple miles out to the hilly part of the forest. At a flat clearing at the bottom of the very steep hill, we sat on a fallen tree and ate our lunches, talked for a little while, then decided we were ready to get up and moving. That's when we looked up to the hill to start climbing. There was a massive, maybe 7 to 8 foot tall, brown humanoid figure staring at us. It was holding something shiny in its right hand, not sure what. When we saw the figure, it darted away fast. Like we both saw it for a second and it immediately became a blur and was gone. I thought I was going crazy. I looked at Jack and he looked at me. We both asked, "Did you see that?" and described generally the same thing to each other. The weird thing is neither of us could describe exactly what it looked like. As soon as we saw it, it blurred away, but even for the split second we did see it, it was almost like the creature was out of focus while the rest of the forest remained in focus. Okay, I want to say something about this really quick because I've actually experienced the opposite with demonic figures trying to pose as humans. Oh my god, dude, I will never forget, dude. I was working at my local Target as a floor employee a couple of years ago, and there was this customer that came up to me, and I was just like folding clothes. I was in the department floor pad. I was just chilling. They call out to me. I turn around. The entire world, like the person in front of me, it was a woman, a feminine looking person around my same height, dark hair. She Looking at her, I can't make this up. I've never experienced this beforehand, and I've never experienced it afterwards either. This is the only time this has ever happened, and it was so freaking bizarre. I'm looking at her, and it seems like, you know, in a photo editor, you can turn up the sharpness. It's like you turn up the sharpness 100%. Like, looking at her, it was like the lines of her features were just so, like, harsh. Like a literal photo filter was on her. Like, I can't describe it in any other way. She had like this shoulder bag and she was holding on to it with one of her hands, and it seemed like she was gripping it kind of tight. Like whatever this thing in front of me was trying to pose as a human, like got it kind of wrong. It was a little, off. And and the other thing that was off was that she was smiling at me with like a smile that was like just very, 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 it made her face wrinkle a lot, and it was very, very wide. But it didn't look necessarily like freakishly wide, but it was just really tight. Like she was gripping her purse and like gripping her face into this like tight, big smile. But then her eyes were like totally calm. So it's like, huh. And she actually did have a little girl next to her, and this young child looked to be like 4 or 5, so it wasn't a small child. And this is relevant to what she asks me. So she looks right at me and she says, "Where's the feeding room?" And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh," and she's like, "The feeding room." And I was like, "Oh, we don't have one," because at the time, that was before the huge renovation for that store. There was no nursing room for mothers. And so she leaves. I look away for a second and I turn back and she was completely gone. there was no way in that short amount of time she could have gotten so far away to the point where, because I was at the edge of the floor pad where there was a big kind of like walking area. Like, you know how Target's laid out? It's like those big like strips of white tile, you know, or the flooring or whatever. You like walk between all the departments, you know? I was right next to one of those paths. There was no way that she would have been completely out of sight in the split second I just turned really quick, you know? And again, I mean, she didn't have a small child. I mean, I don't know, maybe she needed to pump or something looking back, but it's just those other details that were present in the interaction. I just thought it was very strange. It's so interesting that OP and their friend describe it as like everything was the being in front of them, the brown humanoid kind of figure, was blurry, and then everything else around it was clear. I experienced the opposite, where the thing in front of me was like hyper focused, like sharpened tool on a photo editor turned up times a million. And then like around her was like kind of blurred just a little bit. That's so interesting. And so OP goes on to say, all we could say, which was the same for both of us, was tall, brown, carrying something shiny, and darted away in a fast blur. That day we decided it would be best to turn around and head home. Yeah, I would have too. I would have ran, probably. I would have been like, However, a week or so later, we decided to go back. We climbed the hill. At the top of the hill, we saw no tracks or sign of movement, though it had been about a week. A couple minutes walking, still, we came across this run-down shed in the middle of the woods. Nothing around it for a mile. It was made of a rotting wood. It had no windows, and the roof and one side of the walls had collapsed. We tried looking inside, but didn't see much except for a few old tools. We stayed in the area for a few hours and saw nothing else of note. I would not have looked in there, you guys. I would not have, like, even if I was with my friend, I would have seen that structure from a ways away, and I would have turned around. That just gives me the creeps so hard, because actually, in my hometown, there is a semi-large forest preserve that's actually connected to a much larger one, and my friend and I just kept walking and didn't realize that we had left the bounds of the original place. But anyway, in that same place, I was in an area that I've been through like a million times. A bunch of people go there for photo shoots, actually. You know, people I went to high school with, local photographers, they will take people there. It's not super crowded or anything like that, but it's just an area people know about, so it's like fine. It's not like some weird, sketchy, off the beaten path kind of thing, you know what I mean? So I remember walking through there, and one day there was this, it looked like a wide teepee, I guess. It was entirely made out of branches that had been cut and put together in like this circular shape, you know, this kind of like tent shape. And it looked really cool, and it looked like somebody spent a lot of time and effort putting together. But in my head, of course, I'm like, okay, how is this allowed to be here when, you know, this is a property of walking trails and, you know, I don't know if somebody's, you know, trying to be out here. That's not an area that you camp in, by the way. It's just trails. I was like, okay, my logical brain was, how is this allowed? This is cool, but this clearly took a long time to put up and hasn't been taken down yet, so I don't know. But I saw it, and I was looking at it for a little bit, trying to interpret, and I was like, there was nobody around. And from what I could see, there was nobody inside the thing. But I left. I may have ran. I was like, I don't know, something about this in front of me just doesn't feel right. So, last sentence here of the story. Not sure if that last part is even relevant, but maybe it is. Does anyone have any ideas what we saw? Jack and I always referred to it as Bigfoot, but not 100% sure that is what it was. And what's interesting is that, yeah, no, there are some comments here. They say, you should look at the r/Bigfoot and all the evidence and compare it to what you saw. In my opinion, the mama and baby evidence is the most real one I've ever seen. These other comments talk about it. I didn't look into it for this episode because it hasn't been reposted to this subreddit I wanted to focus on. But on my own time, or maybe even in a future episode, let me know your interest. I might take stories from the r/Bigfoot subreddit. Apparently there was this huge kind of thing, and it's like really, really, really solid evidence on this subreddit that they're referring to as the mom and baby video or picture or whatever it is. So I need to look at that. But they talk about that. Someone else said the fact it had something shiny in its hand seems a little odd for Bigfoot, but it is possible it had something man-made. Depending on what others tend to lean towards, there's some theories that Sasquatch themselves can manifest into energy balls or orbs, so maybe the shiny thing has something to do with that, just trying to toss out some ideas. And so someone else brings up the orb. They say, I think what you may have seen is a Bigfoot. There have been stories of people seeing Bigfoot carrying a glowing orb, and on the Mysterious Universe podcast, they feature 2 of these encounters. Yeah, so maybe it wasn't an object at all. Maybe it was some type of energy ball or something. That is that story. Very, 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 very interesting. We just have 1, 2, we have 3 more here for you guys. We got this. We got this. This is a post from 4 days ago, guys. This is like recent, and it actually doesn't have any comments. I'm like, oh man. But they say it's titled Help Identifying. And it says, this happened a few months ago in the winter. For context, I'm in South Mississippi, and me and my friend were out late at night looking around in my woods, which is a fairly normal thing to do. The woods behind my house are hundreds of acres of undeveloped land. We were walking a field, and it was like a dead night, no wind or any noises. And we look and see this big tree rustling like it looks when a bear is scratching its back on a tree. We thought it was weird, but then continued on. I don't know. I would have, guys, I get so freaked out so easily by stuff. I don't know. I would have not continued on, but OP goes on to say that we entered the woods maybe 100 feet down from where that happened because I have a small cabin/hut I camp and hunt out of. The top floor is just open, so we sat up there and took a break, but as I say, it was very quiet and we kept hearing steps or something. Not really that big of a deal, right? But then right next to our cabin, we hear this really strange noise. I don't like this already. I don't know how to explain it better than a clicking scream. Kind of like the generic skinwalker noises from those fake videos, honestly. Like a raking, clicking noise. It sounded like when you breathe in through your vocal cords and it makes a clicking reverse scream kind of noise. It was so weird. We psyched ourselves up to jump out at the same time and looked but saw nothing, then quickly left the area. Any idea what that could have been? We also stopped by my pet cemetery on the way back to my house, and as soon as we stepped foot in it, we heard this deafening noise like a ship horn. I don't know if that was related. Really strange night. Yeah, you're telling me. Nah, that's, I don't know, any kind of scream or clicking, not good. I don't like that. That's really freaky. And you know what? I kind of feel bad. I do not know, like, cryptids are not my specialty. I have not spent a lot of time studying cryptids. I've only ever heard stories on podcasts and what my friends have told me and what I've experienced my own self. It's very much not something that I know as much about as I know about other spiritual things. So, I don't know, some type of clicking. Yeah, it's some type of, I mean, that almost reminds me of just folkloric kind of humanoid scary things, hairless, kind of lanky sort of humanoid things that wander around in the forest. That's kind of what it makes me think of immediately, but I don't know enough. I don't know what specific examples of that there are, specific names or myths or things like that. I just, out of the collection of experiences I have read and heard about, it makes me think that it's in that sort of subcategory of cryptid, if that makes sense. But yeah, no answers for this OP. I mean, it is from 4 days ago. It only has 2 upvotes though, so I don't know, man. Maybe we'll get some type of update at some point. This next one is a repost from the r/cryptids subreddit, and it's got mixed comments, mixed opinions about what this thing could be. So this was posted 6 months ago, and OP says it's titled Sighting in New Mexico. And they say, my girlfriend and I were exploring the desert and car camping in BLM dispersed land this past summer. So BLM land is basically just free land, open land to anyone type of thing. You can be there, camp there, go there. You can exist there for free, basically. It's protected. And so they go on to say, we are both from Arkansas and unfamiliar with area folklore. Okay. We were approaching our campsite on Bear Creek Mountain outside of Silver City when our headlights fixed on a tall creature for a split second around a bend. 7 feet or taller, lean, walking on 2 feet, hunched forward, and gray/brown hair. It paused to look at us and ducked in the brush. We didn't see it long enough to get a better description, but long enough to not sleep very well that night. I don't blame them. They go on to say, any New Mexican locals have any clues on WTF this thing was? And someone said Bigfoot. That's my only guess, as apparently they're also found in New Mexico. That's my first thought as well. Desert ones tend to be hunched over and with a more sandy gray color. Thank you for sharing, OP. Dogman, listen to the Dogman Encounters radio on YouTube. May have been a skinwalker you saw. Bigfoot or Dogman. Like, I'm just going through all these comments here. Someone else said, amazing. Love that fellow experiencers can share on here without criticism. I have seen strange things in the sky most often. Strange monkey creature in the woods one time when I was walking with a friend back in the 90s, similar to a painted face monkey, Richmond, Vermont area. Okay, yeah, I don't know. I think this is the most, like, mixed opinions I've seen in a cryptid post of, like, I mean, people said Bigfoot, some people said Dogman, some people said, Skinwalker, like, a number of people said Dogman. It's mostly Dogman and Bigfoot, but there are people like, oh, Skinwalker. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's a Skinwalker. Skinwalkers are they look how they sound. Yeah, I don't want to, it's like freaky, but I think it was probably Bigfoot, especially the hunched over and like the hair that they describe. Yeah, gray brown hair, 7 foot or taller, 7 feet. Dogman, I don't know what Dogman looks like. I don't. I think it may have been in another story here, our last story actually for this episode. Somebody was thinking what the heck it was. So we're going to go ahead and move right on to that. Our final story is directly posted to the Cryptid Encounters subreddit. This is scary, okay? It's got a lot of comments. It freaks me out just reading it. They posted this 6 months ago, and it's titled, Has anyone here encountered a not deer? And they say, I live in the Appalachian Mountains, and since I'm a teenager, I live with my parents. We have a large forest behind our house. Mistake number 1. Okay, what is it with all these people with these giant-ass forests behind their house? Anyway, they go on to say, my dad was looking through a night vision camcorder and saw something he described as, I'm paraphrasing here, quote, something that looked like a deer but moved like how a human would be moving if it crawled on all fours. Nah, absolutely not. But he figured out how to record the second it ran away. This was 9 months ago or so, and today I saw something on Pinterest about not deer. I instantly thought of that incident, so I sent it to him, and he said the description, albeit brief, matches it to a T. Does anybody have a more in-depth explanation about them and how to identify them? So, a lot of comments here. We're going to go ahead and read those. Somebody says, I've lived in the Appalachian Mountains for years. I've heard stories but never seen any, but I have accidentally whistled to my dog outside to come in at night, and something whistled back at me. Let's just say I've never gotten my dog so fast in my life and closed up the house. Absolutely not. I hate that a lot. Somebody else said, I live in the Appalachian Mountains too, and somehow have never encountered anything. Okay. Yeah, I have limited audio proof and no visual proof. Nobody seems to believe me, is what OP said. And then other people are like, no, we believe you. And then OP was like, well, okay, wait. They're like, no, we believe you. And then somebody said, one time when I was sleeping, I heard growling coming from under my desk like a big dog. And then OP said, yeah, once I saw something nearly identical to my dog, only a little off, but my dog was inside. And my dad has seen the same thing in the same place. I also got chased out of the forest last Saturday by a large animal. I can't figure out what it was. And then somebody was like, what? In all caps. Ew, no, I agree. OP just drops that. And actually, OP deleted their account. So it's like, oh my gosh, wait. So we're never going to get an update, maybe? But that's wild, though, to just be like, oh yeah, something chased me. And people are like, like, just drop that. Somebody else said, not the same thing, but I just read a report from the Expedition Bigfoot Museum in North GA, Georgia, of an encounter 2 hunters had in the Pacific Northwest. They were coming out of a wooded area into a clearing, and while one hunter went to use, quote, the facilities, the other noticed something across the clearing. He looked through either binoculars or his scope and saw something on 2 legs covered in fur, shoulders about 4 feet wide, and overall about 9 feet tall. He said it progressively turned into a man in a black suit and started walking across the field, lifted its arm and waved at the hunter. At the time, the other hunter came back, saw the man in the suit, and made a comment about how odd it was to be so far out wearing a suit. They both noted that it didn't appear to be walking, but more like gliding across the field. I've personally heard many BF stories of witnesses saying it looked like it was gliding, not walking. That is so freaking weird. Like, so that begs the question of, like, they might be walking among us, you know, transforming into a more typical human look and then retreating back into the forest into their true form. That is so interesting. I don't remember this comment when I originally found this post, so oh my goodness. But here, okay. I'm glad because we actually get a comment that is more, I guess, scientific, physical world. This person says, 3 words, chronic wasting disease. I have seen it and it's terrifying, both if you don't know what it is and do know what it is. I will never eat venison again. So what they're talking about, I've only seen it briefly, and probably that's a good thing because, again, I get freaked out by stuff, you guys. That is, there's a disease that deer can get in the woods, and basically it makes them go crazy. They start to bald, there's redness on their skin, their eyes are weird, and they move weird. So, yeah, that is a physical world explanation of what people might be seeing as not deer. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, maybe they're one and the same. I don't know. Or maybe not deer doesn't exist at all, and it's just this disease that people are scared by, and they gave it a name thinking it's supernatural when it's not. I have no idea. I kind of don't want to know. I really don't. So, but I'm glad that they brought it up because I forgot about that. I have heard of it, but I forgot about it until now. So somebody else said, I'm from the Appalachian also. I've seen a white-tailed deer taller than an Escalade, just stared at me, looked over the Escalade, real late at night, early morning. My entire body went cold and I got the F out of there. And then someone else said, I'm in Indiana and my cousin told me her and her son saw an upright walking deer amongst other normal deer. She wouldn't even say what they thought it was. She called it the W word, which she was thinking when to go, but I tried to explain that's not necessarily what those actually look like and said it sounds like a not deer to me. Oh, okay. So I guess there's a difference of, like, if it is bipedal, then it's not deer. If it just looks kind of creepy in the woods, but it's like a regular deer, then I guess it has that disease, sadly. Different behaviors. Maybe don't stick around to find out. I don't know. That's really sad, but someone else said, final comment here, I don't live there, but it fascinates me. This fascinates me. That's oh man, oh man, oh man. I don't go nowhere without somebody else, I don't. Yeah, that's a lot, but okay, those are all our stories. But real quick here, at the very end of this episode, I did promise that I would share my friend's story. It's pretty short, but haunting. Okay, so where I met this person was actually when I was president of the Paranormal Theories Club at the local community college, okay? And they were, he is a Norse pagan who was a part of this club, and that's how we met, and we shared our paranormal stories. There was a time where, here, one second, more context. This community college is in a cornfield in an older-ish part of town with a lot of surrounding farms, okay? Just as context. And so there was this one time my friend was leaving a night class. It was dark. It was in a building where kind of nobody else really was. And they look down the hall and they see this tall, skinny shadow dude, was the best way that he could describe it. And they just kind of stared at each other for a second. This thing takes one step toward him and he booked it out of there so fast. And I'm like, oh my God. So he told us at the club, like, this happened the other day in building C or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, that's insane. So, yeah, I guess these things most of the time like to hide. But it makes sense that, I mean, this community college in the middle of the frickin' cornfield in a building that was like empty at night, like it makes sense that maybe it was kind of lurking. And then poor my friend, emerged from his classroom and saw it. That is the episode, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I have so many ideas and I'm constantly working on new content for you guys. So please keep an eye out. If you haven't followed and subscribed, please go ahead and do that if you want to. If you're enjoying this, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below with your thoughts. If you have any experiences to share about cryptids, I would love, love, love to read about them. And I'm wishing you a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.